Hey, what is going on, guys? DK. Back at you with another video here to bring the showdown slate between the Phoenix Suns and the LA Clippers. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. My name is DK. I make daily videos and live stream for NBA and NFL sites on Draftkings. I also make videos for PGA DFS. I have a video up for the Travelers Championship that starts tomorrow morning, if that interests you. And I also make videos for NBA Top Shot. If you're unable to watch these videos, I upload on Apple Podcasts. Link down below is called the DKDFS show. And if you could, leave a 5-star rating and review. That would help me out a lot. If you're interested in signing up for premium content, I'll offer that at Patreon.com, an esports package. That includes Call of Duty and CSGO. In CSGO, we got slates every single day. Call of Duty normally 4 times a week. Then I also offer an NBA package. Now with the NBA package, you'll get the golfer data sheets for free for PGA if you do play PGA DFS. And I do want to thank Prize Picks for sponsoring this episode. So brief little overview of Prize Picks if you're not familiar. There's a couple different ways you can play. Number one is you take over/under on just fantasy points. So Prize Picks will post players and their fantasy scores, and you either take over/under. It's really that simple. They have a lot posted for tomorrow's game already, or you can go single stat. So you can take over/under points, assists, rebounders, 3-pointers made. Again, they have every sport you can think of. They do have PGA, where you can take over/under fantasy points. They have single stat where you can go over/under on birdie or better, longest drive, finishing place too. So they have a lot of good stuff. If you guys want to try it out, you can sign up to the code DKDFS. DKDFS, all one word, link down below. You'll get a 100% match up to $100. Basically, you put $100 in, you get a free $100 to play with. And let's see, is there any of these that kind of stand out to me? Yes, I think the under on Booker is where I lean at 45 fantasy points. I know we had a bad game last game, but this is different, right? Chris Paul is most likely back. So that makes me not like Booker as much. So I think I like the under there in Devin Booker of 45 fantasy points. But all right, before we talk about players and their prices for these 2 games, or for the showdown site, we can look back mine up here from Wednesday's showdown site. So Wednesday's showdown site went pretty well for me. I kind of hinted at it a little bit YouTube, but told you guys exactly where I was going in the Patreon live stream of, hey, I'm playing Bobby Portis in the captain. I'm rolling the dice because if he gets on the court, he's a great point per minute guy. And he only played 15 minutes, and he smashed 11 points, 8 boards, 1 assist. So I went with Portis, and then the team jam-in approach with Giannis, Trey, Middleton. Now, Middleton was the one letdown. Obviously shot like 6 of 23. So, he has those games where he just can't hit a shot. It is what it is. And then Jrue Holiday, too. Jrue Holiday had a really good game. And Pat Connaughton was the chalk value. He was fine, 10 fancy points. But where I kept hammering it down was, on the showdown site, was, first of all, obviously the Bobby Portis, high risk, high reward play. And then number 2 was, I thought Trae Young was going to be severely under-owned. And he was. Only 57% owned for Trae Young. I was like, hey, he should be up in the Giannis territory of ownership, and he was not. So he was 57% owned, where Giannis was 88%. So it was a massive gap. I don't think it should have been that big of a gap. Again, if Trae Young didn't have that awful Game 7, he would have been more popular, right? He would have been a lot more popular. So the recency bias always affects ownership a little bit. But that's it, guys. Hope you had a good night. Again, it was a pretty solid night for me. I didn't go and play anything crazy. Just the big $20 tournament. Turned it into $40. But yeah, double my money. Again, solid night. So let's move on to this showdown slate with the Suns and the Clippers against the 221 over/under. The Suns are 1.5-point favorites. So on the Phoenix side, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, big 3. I think Chris Paul looks the best because I don't think there's going to be any limitations. And I think we get around 35 to 40 minutes. And Chris Paul is the guy that, of the big 3, he has the highest floor. And it's just because he can do it all. The peripherals, right? The assists, first of all, he's a guy that will probably get close to double-digit assists. He's a decent rebounder. He can obviously score the ball. I think Chris Paul is my favorite player in the Suns. I really, really like him here at that price. Again, Devin Booker not completely out of play. I know he had the bad game last game, and that's going to drop the ownership. But what also is going to drop the ownership is Chris Paul's back. So he does kind of take a backseat a little bit with Chris Paul back. Now, he can still have upside. He just becomes a little bit more reliant on the scoring when Chris Paul is in the lineup. And then DeAndre Ayton at 9K. Had a massive game last game. If they continue to start Ivica Zubac and play in big minutes, I think that actually helps Ayton because that makes it so Ayton can be around the basket more instead of them stretching the floor, going small ball. So if they continue to run Zubac big minutes, I think that actually helps Ayton. He's going to play about 35 minutes. He's a guy that's probably going to get you close to double-double. I think he's a safer option, but again, I think I prefer the upside more Chris Paul than I do DeAndre Ayton. Now, with Chris Paul most likely back, I'm off campaign. Way too pricey. Again, I mentioned using him in the captain last slate. That worked out really well. But yeah, with PAYNE at that price with Chris Paul back, there's just no way I'm getting it done. Bridges at 7.4 feels way too pricey. He'll probably play the big minutes, but not a guy that normally has a lot of upside. Of the two wings, I would rather get to Crowder, but I don't think either are necessary. Again, both Crowder and Bridges had bad games last game. They had in the teens in fantasy points. Normally, these are guys that have a decently high floor, right? They can rebound, they can knock down some corner threes, can get some blocks and steals. So yeah, I would rather play Crowder than Bridges for sure, right? Crowder is 5'8", Bridges is 7'4", but I don't think either are necessary. Now Cam Johnson probably loses some minutes too with Chris Paul back. He's played 24 first couple of games. I think we go back to the 15 to 20 minute range for Cam Johnson, which doesn't make him out of play, but he's a little pricey at 4.4. Again, a guy that can obviously hit some shots, but I think he does lose some minutes. Torrey Craig at 3.8, I think he's going to be pretty low owned, right? He literally had 0. He had 0 fantasy points, but he's a guy that has, let's just look at recent games for Torrey Craig. 3 of the last 6, 24 fantasy points in 17 minutes, 22 in 15, and 18 in 15 minutes. So the upside is there. Now the price, right, 3.8, it's still I don't think I can do it. But I think he's a very interesting low-owned value play that if he goes out and gets you 20 fantasy points, he's probably going to be needed in the winning lineup. And then Dario Saric at 2.2, I think is actually a pretty good value. He is the Suns' value I think I feel the best about, and it's because his role is pretty solidified. He's going to play 10 to 15 minutes off the bench. He's a good shooter. Obviously, he's a decent point per guy when playing the 5. And if for some reason Aiden gets in some foul trouble, that's where you can play some more. So I think Sarge is actually a pretty solid value there at 2.2K. And then I think Etuan Moore, who's been in the rotation last couple games, goes back to DNP with Chris Paul back. All right, so let's finish up with the Clippers. The Clippers, Paul George obviously choked that last game, but he's still a guy I feel pretty safe about because he's going to play big minutes, and he's just their clear number 1 option. So I do like Paul George a lot here, even at 11.2K. And of the mid-range guys are Reggie, Batum, and Morris. Once again, it's going to be Reggie. And it's just because he's a guy that can actually create his own shot. He's a guy that is been shooting the ball really well in the playoffs, and he's been their clear number 2 guy when Kawhi's out. So I like Reggie Jackson here in the mid-range. I think he's a guy that's going to play close to 40 minutes. And again, he has to be their number 2 offensively. Now with Batum, Marcus Morris, Batum came off the bench last game, only played 16 minutes. If he doesn't start, I have 0 interest in Batum. Marcus Morris, the issue is the knee, right? And plus the minutes, 29, 21, 25 minutes last 3 games. He has not been playing big minutes. That does worry me. Now, I still think there's a way where if he plays well, he plays 35 to 40 minutes. But again, don't feel great about either of those wings. Now, Zubac, if he starts again, I think is a pretty good play. I don't know if we get 34 minutes, but if we get over 20 from Zubac, I think that makes him for sure in play. Because, again, a decent point per minute guy, a guy that went for a double-double last game, can block some shots. I think Zubac, if he starts, is a solid play. Now, if he doesn't start, that's where I'd be worried because Ty Lue has shown that bench rotation is just so inconsistent. So if Zubac doesn't start, there's a chance he plays 10 minutes, and that's it. So keep an eye on that. Again, if he doesn't start, he becomes a lot riskier. Now, Terrence Mann actually came off the bench. He played 19 minutes. If he doesn't start, he becomes a risky play. If he moves back into the starting lineup, feel a little bit better about him. So that's one. Again, keep an eye on the starting lineup. Pat Beverly, I think, is actually a pretty safe play if he starts. He started the point guard too. So he played 26 minutes. Obviously, not a great scorer, but he's a guy that can get some blocks, some steals. Again, a good defender. So if he starts again, I think Pat Beverly is a safe value play. I do. Rondo off the bench, maybe a little bit riskier because the minutes haven't been as high, but he's another guy that is a good point per guy. A guy can stuff his stat sheet. Went for 8, 4, and 3 last game. That's basically a Rondo stat line. So if we get 15 to 20 minutes from Rondo at 2.8K, I like him again for value. And Luke Kennard. So he was basically out of the rotation last couple games, but I mentioned, I was like, hey, if he comes off the bench and shoots well, they will extend him. They close with Luke Kennard. He played almost 20 minutes. This is what I've been hammering home all playoffs with the Clippers is you just cannot trust this bench rotation, right? They're going to go with a hot hand. So there's ways you can get different, right? You play the Clipper bench guy that didn't play well last game, right? They're just going to come in at lower ownership. So Yes, Kennard played well last game. However, if he comes out and bricks his first couple shots, he could play 5 minutes, right? So that's a risk with Kennard. However, he's a guy that can obviously score the ball, and I think they do kind of need his scoring. So Kennard intrigues me as a GPP value play because he's really cheap. And that's really it. Like, Boogie Cousins only played 3 minutes or 4 minutes, got burned again on the defensive end. I just don't think he can play much in the series. I don't. He's obviously a good offensive player, but he just a liability in the defensive end. I think he barely plays or gets a DNP. Now, sure, could you roll the dice on Cousins here and maybe he plays 10 minutes and crushes in that time? It's possible. We saw it in game 1 where he played 13 minutes. I just think, again, he keeps getting burned in the defensive end where I don't know if they go back to him here. So that is it for the player-by-player breakdown, guys. I think that's going to do it for the video as well. If you have been enjoying the content so far, I would really appreciate it if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos and you know when I'm live. Again, I will be live tomorrow to break it all down. Make sure to check out the YouTube live stream, guys. Thanks again. Have a great night, and I'll see you all tomorrow in the live stream.